Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving into a brand new study. I have decided that we are not going to finish up Aleister Crowley. It is not worth it. We are instead going to turn towards more positive things. We are pretty much done with all of the old. Now, what we are doing today is the Dao De Jing, which is definitely old. But this is a more positive thing. It is not the negative spin that we got from Aleister Crowley. It is not the misinformation that we got from Aleister Crowley or Eliphas Levi or any of the other ones. We are focusing in a different direction, seeing if we can get some different intentionality out of it and maybe a different understanding of how to do the same things. But before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above in the box down below, along with the original source material, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am, and the link for my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and begin an exploration of the Dao De Jing by Laozi with J. Legge translator. Now, we are not doing a groundwork video on this one. From my understanding, Laozi would not be appreciative of the effort, right? It's not about him. It is about the message instead. And so we are going to dive directly into the message. I'm not even sure how much information is out there about him, and so I don't even know the effectiveness of it, but it is the message contained in this book that has been reiterated to me 3 separate times, and we know that 3 is important, and so let us dive in and begin our exploration of the Dao De Jing by Laozi with part 1. The Tao that can be trodden is not the enduring and unchanging Tao. The name that can be named is not the enduring and unchanging name. That is absolutely true, right? The Tao, in my understanding, is the way, right? I am not positive about that. I probably should have looked that up first, but my understanding is that this is a way, right? This is the finding of a way. Now, I have a way. I have a way that I have outlined. I have a way that I do follow, but I do not claim that it is the only way. I do believe that there are many ways. I believe that God will meet you where you are, so it doesn't matter where you are as long as you are seeking God. But there is caveats to that, right? You have to be properly aligned in order to find what you are seeking. You have to have your intentionality right. But it doesn't matter what name you call on. In fact, if you are calling upon a name, you are doing it wrong. Right? There is a sound which is remarkably like a word, which can be quite effective, but it is not a name. It is not the appellation. It is instead the very sound of creation. If you are calling upon any particular name, you are doing it wrong. God is beyond your conception of a name. And we're going to hit the divine and the Trinity real quick. It will be linked in the corner above. The divine and the Trinity explained for a greater understanding. But before the beginning, there was God, and God was limitless and without form, the void. And then God decided to become and became the creation, and therefore limited himself from the infinite, which is unknowable, into the finite, which is kind of knowable. That moment of transition from the infinite into the finite was the beginning, taken in stasis as a snapshot. All of creation existing inside of the spirit, all of the elements created but not yet combined, all individually existent but not yet compounded. And then God spoke and became. He said, I am the light. And that is the phrase that was actually recorded in the original language. Not let there be, but instead, I am. And that holds true for all of them, not just the light. I am the light. I am the waters. I am the separation. I am the creatures. All of that was God speaking into existence, these things that were good, and becoming them by speaking them. That speaking, that becoming of the light, that was setting into motion that beginning. Right? That snapshot where everything was created, set into motion, is the Logos. That is the spirit moving, the now transferring into the next, becoming. That is the spirit, that is the Logos, and it has no name and cannot incarnate. And if you are calling upon a name, you are limiting God beyond what he has limited himself. He never gave us a name. He didn't. No matter what anybody else says, he did not give us a name. He gave us sounds. Some of those sounds are useful, but they are not his name. The entirety of creation is fully God, right? But it is not God fully. God still exists beyond the creation, outside of the creation, not within the creation. And while he is the entirety of the creation, creation is not entirety of him. And to limit him by a name is to limit him into creation, and therefore it is wrong. Right? The same as with the way, right? The way is varied. There are many different types of people, and we all have our destinations. Sometimes those destinations do not align with other people. That is a reality. Your way and my way are not necessarily the same way. I do believe that our goal as humanity is to rise to the highest point that we possibly can, to make the decisions that the divine would have us to make, right? The decisions for the betterment of humanity and yourself, but humanity in the greater proportion. And so while you are on your individual journey, there is a goal that we all have, even if we don't necessarily make it. You are free to choose a different goal. But if you are seeking the highest, if you are seeking God, then many of our paths are going to converge or at least run parallel to one another. I am trying to light my path in such a way that if someone else desires to be upon the same path, they can. And if they are parallel, they still see some guideposts that can help them to reach the highest. That does not mean that my path is the only path in any way, shape, or form. I fully understand that I can have the wrong conception of things. I have been corrected since I've opened this channel. Since we have been doing this, I've been corrected this week, right? And so I am always open for correction, and one of those corrections is the way that I walk the path. While I am on a path and I have found a way, I am fully engaged in my path. I believe it is the right one. That doesn't mean it's the only one. That is what this is saying. Now, I went about it a long ways past, but that is what this is. If you are limiting God into a concept or a name or even a path, you are doing it wrong. Conceived of as having no name, it is the originator of heaven and earth. We just talked about that. Conceived of as having a name, it is the mother of all things. Now, limiting, right? I refer to God as the Spirit. That is, God has limited himself from the infinite into the finite. That would be giving the name, right? We can name the finite, the things that have a limit, we can place a name upon. And while it is not the entirety of God, right, limiting it in, he limited in himself, and I only use he because that is a vernacular that everybody is familiar with. It is equally exchangeable with feminine pronouns as masculine. The divine is neither. But the concept that we use is that the God, the eternal outside, is masculine. This would be the Spirit represented as the mother, right? The originator of heaven and earth would be the limiting into the Spirit, and therefore becoming the thing that God limited himself into, which would be the Spirit. And so this is in perfect accordance with what I already believe. Confirmation bias acknowledged. Always without desire, we must be found. That is not true. If it's deep mystery, we would sound, but if desire always within us be, its outer fringe is all that we shall see. All right, let's finish it up and then we'll talk. Under these two aspects, it is really the same, but as development takes place, it receives different names. Together we call them the mystery. Where the mystery is the deepest is the gate of all that is subtle and wonderful. I do take exception to this, right? Always without desire we must be found is not true. This is giving away power where power should not be given away. You are here. That is reality. It is not an illusion. God has created you to do things. Now, you do have purpose. There is intention in your life, even if you do not realize it, and sometimes those intentions are not realizable. But you have desires, and God gave them to you as well. Those desires may not always be aligned with your betterment, but sometimes they are. And being sometimes they are, always without desire is incorrect. Right? Always is already a big word. It incorporates everything every time, and so you shouldn't have any desire to eat or drink? No. Wrong. Absolutely, emphatically wrong. Right? You should have a desire to eat and drink. You should have a desire for sexual pleasure. You should have a desire for communication. You should have a desire to take pride in your work. All of these things are good in moderation. Right? It is the excess that is the problem. And so while you should have desires, you should not always succumb to those desires. They should be tested and weighed against your purpose, the thing that you are here for. And you are here for something. There is something that only you can do, or God would not have created you. Somebody else would have done it. You are here for a purpose, and that purpose is your desire, your true will, not the crap that Aleister Crowley was talking about, but the actual true will, the actual thing which will actually complete your goal here on the planet. That is a real thing, not do whatever you want, but seek your true will. That is a good thing. That true will is rooted in desire. Desire is not necessarily bad, and the implication that it is victim mentality, and I am not going to tolerate that, even from the Tao. I don't care how long it's been written. I mean, that is one of the emphatics over here, right? It does not matter how long it has been written. If it is not expressed correctly, we will express it. If it is not translated appropriately, we'll get there. Right now, that does not mean I am an expert in languages, but I am pretty good at seeing behind the meaning. I do that fairly well. This is not correct, right? This, as expressed, is not correct. Always without desire is not correct. That is wrong. 2. All in the world know the beauty of the beautiful, and in doing this, they have the idea of what ugliness is. They all know the skill of the skillful, and in doing this, they have the idea of what the want of skill is. So it is that existence and non-existence give birth to one, the idea of the other. That difficulty and ease produce the one, the idea of the other. That length and shortness fashion out of the one the figure of the other. That the ideas of height and lowness arise from the contrast of one with the other. That the musical notes and tones become harmonious through the relation of one with another. And that being before and behind give the idea of one following the other. All right, let's break this off. So, all in the world know the beauty of the beautiful. Right? Beauty is subjective. It is in the eye of the beholder. That is an aphorism that we all hold to be pretty true. Right? What I consider beautiful and what you consider beautiful are not the same thing. What I consider ugly and what you consider ugly are not the same thing. There may be similarities, there may be overlap, but it is not going to be exactly the same. That is, right, you, by knowing beauty, get to know ugly. That is kind of why we're here. That explains the experiential part of existence. It really does, because God is good. God is good without exception, and therefore God doesn't know bad. God can only know bad through the relative of us. Right now, we may not know at a challenge in our life that challenge is actually beneficial. It is changing, shaping, reforming us in a way that is going to be better for us in the long run. But in the moment, we don't know that. In the moment, we're consumed by the challenge and we are looking at it in the wrong way. Some of that has some negative emotions attached: anger, frustration, guilt. Right? There are a whole variety of things that can be attributed, and God can know those things through us. Because what does God grieve? Absolutely nothing. He created everything, and everything is going to return to Him. What is there to grieve? God can't know that except through us, because we grieve. This is the same thing expressed in a different way. You know beautiful, and therefore because you know beautiful, you know ugly. Well, God already knows beautiful, but in order for God to know ugly, He has to have a contrast, and we are the contrast. We are the contrast in existence. It is part of our purpose here. And so embracing that is part of why we are here. And that includes the ugly parts, right? That includes the parts that aren't that pleasant, the parts that are really shaping and growing us. See, this right here, this is gold. And the only way that you can form this gold is through extreme heat. You take the raw material, you heat it up, and you refine it through that heat. You scrape off the impurities. But without the heat, you don't get the gold. Without the physical trials, you don't grab the strength. Without the emotional trials, you don't get resilience. And with those, you become better. You become more. You get to be able to overcome. And you get to help other people to overcome as well, because then you get to be an example of beauty. Even though everything was ugly, you still get to be the example of beauty. And that is why we are here. To embrace the experience of being here. This is not a punishment. There are terrible things that happen. Yes, there are wonderful things that happen. The birth of your child is something that I cannot even express if you haven't had it. You don't even know what love is until you've held your child, if you're properly aligned, right? Once you have that experience, then you get to know it. Well, that's what we're here for. Is for the experience, to gain that knowledge, because God can't grieve without us. And that is not to limit God, right? That is the understanding that I hold, that our experience of grief allows God to know grief because he can't, because it goes back to him. We came from him, we return to him. There's no place to burn forever. That's not a thing unless you create it. And so this is a reiteration of that, right? Even this existence and non-existence give birth one to the other. Difficulty and ease produce one and the other. Length and shortness. This is the same thing. We are here for the contrast, and that is between the difficult and the easy. Therefore, the sage manages affairs without doing anything and conveys his instructions without the use of speech. And see, again, this is going to be a point of contention, because no, the sage is going to do the appropriate thing, not nothing, right? If there is an action to be taken and you have the wisdom to do so, it is your imperative to do so. You are required by the Creator to step into the authority he has given you. And if you have the knowledge, you have the authority. And this is exactly wrong. You will not manage affairs without doing anything. You will do so appropriately. You will convey your instructions with the use of speech, sometimes without, yes, but, right, this is you. However, right, the allegory here is taking the appropriate steps for yourself without being external, right? Managing your affairs without doing anything is doing the internal work without seeking outside. Conveying your instructions is to yourself, not to other people. And so there is an allegory there, I am fully aware, but that is not even correct. Back to the text. All things spring up, and there is not one which declines to show itself. They grow, and there is no claim made for their ownership. They go through their processes, and there is no expectation of a reward for the results. The work is accomplished, and there is no resting in it as an achievement. And see, again, this is not quite correct. Right? You should not just finish the work and rest. Right? But there is a period of rest. There is a time after the challenge where you rest before the harvest. Every time. There is the last fertilization before you receive the reward. There will be rewards, right? You should not be doing it for the rewards. You should be doing it because it is the right thing to do. But if you do the right thing, then there will be rewards. It is one of the laws of creation. It is a fundamental physics fact, right? There, for action, there is response. There will be a reward. Now, whether that is what you consider to be appropriate, that's up for grabs, right? And what you think is best may not actually be best. The reward that you think you deserve may actually be detrimental to you, and so you should maintain the possibility that you won't recognize the reward as a reward, but there will be a reward. You should not be motivated by the reward, but instead by taking right action. But there will be a work, right? You have a work. It will be accomplished if you are following your path, and there will be a period where you can rest in it, not to take pride, right? You should take pride in a job well done, but it does not make you better than anyone. It is an achievement. You are here to achieve things. There is nothing wrong with that. That is one of the fundamental problems that I see that we are going to have with this study, right? This is the denial of self. If you are denying that you did a job well, you are denying yourself. That is denying divinity as well. God gave you the ability to do it correctly. That is why he put you here. There is nothing wrong with taking some measure of credit for that. Now, you should be sharing credit everywhere that it is responsible. You should not take credit for things you have not done. But you should take credit for things you have done. It doesn't make you better than anyone, but it is part of life. You will have tasks. You will accomplish them. It is okay to be happy with that. Next. The work is done, but how? No one can see. 'Tis this that makes the power not cease to be. 3. Not to value and employ men of superior ability is the way to keep people from rivalry among themselves. Not to value people and employ men of superior ability is the way to keep people from rivalry among themselves is victim mentality to the nth fucking degree. And I was so trying not to cuss on this. I really thought we were going to get through this one without that, but I guess not. You should, right? If you have an endeavor, you should have the best people involved, right? You should seek out people of superior ability with no exception. Now, they should be morally sound if you were going to align yourself with them, yes. They should make the appropriate decisions aligned with that, absolutely. But if you are doing so, like, only the people of lesser will be jealous, right? And so, keeping rivalry from themselves by limiting the ability to do is exactly the wrong thing, right? I am not going to hire you to do this job which you are eminently qualified for because it might make this guy who is less qualified feel bad is stupid. Like, not even misguided. Stupid. Now, that does not mean that this guy who has the ability should lord over anyone else the things, right? There is humility involved. But this right here, what? Man, that is the first sentence in the opening thing. Maybe he corrects that as we go along. But that is not wisdom. That right there, that is not wisdom. That is cowardice. That's what that is. Not to value and employ men of superior ability is the way to keep people from rivalry among themselves is cowardice. That is not assuming the position of leadership which we all are called to be in. Let's see if it gets any better. Not to prize articles which are difficult to procure is a way to keep them from becoming thieves. Oh my fucking God. Are you kidding me? Are you shitting me right now? Victim blame much? What? I can't have a phone because somebody might come and steal it, and then it's my fault for having the phone? Not to prize articles which are difficult to procure is the way from keep them from becoming thieves. Now, that can be read, right? Like you placing too much value into these things, right? So if you place your value into the phone, then the phone becomes a thief, right? That becomes a thief of your directionality, of your intentions, because you are valuing the thing, and that makes sense, right? That I emphatically endorse. Right? You should have things. I don't know if this is going to be one of those give away all you got to the poor, which is stupid. All right. Now, you should give away things, though. You should not value them above people's lives to right? Nobody's allowed to steal from you. You are allowed to defend your property. And then if it is valuable, you are able to do things. I do not limit you at all from being able to handle your own business. That is also cosmic law, right? Like written into. Nobody gets to transgress you in that way. And if it involves them making the decision to no longer be here because of the decisions that they have made, that was their decisions. Now you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that, and they are consequential. Like, I can tell you that pretty emphatically. But the love of things here is fine, right? The thing becoming a thief. But if this is someone else, in the way that it is rivalry among themselves, is someone else's jealousy, which is not a thing to give into, right? If this is talking about the not loving the mortal things to the point where it is above people, then fine. But if this is, I have a thing and I shouldn't because somebody might steal it, that is not fine at all, in any way, shape, or form, at all. Alright, let's continue and see where it goes, because hopefully it gets better, because I am not pleased with that at all. Not to show them what is likely to excite their desires is the way to keep their minds from disorder. And again, that is exactly wrong. Exactly bad advice, right? That is denial of self in the wrong way. Entirely in the wrong way. That is the exact, like, there is no qualifiers here that gives it a positive spin, right? Me trying to read a positive spin was that last little rant. There is no positive spin to this. This is, don't employ men so that other people don't get jealous. Don't have things so that other people don't become a thief. Don't show them what is likely to excite their desires to keep them from getting distracted. No. No. Emphatically no. Therefore, the sage, in the exercise of his government, empties their minds, fills their bellies, weakens their will, and strengthens their bones. That requires a key, right? That is something like, this is a specific saying. Empty the mind, fill the belly, weaken the will, and strengthen the bones. This is a specific saying that I do not have the key for, but I can recognize that there is a key for it. Right now, emptying their minds is allowing the divine to come in my estimation. Filling the bellies is provision from the divine without concern by yourself. Weakens their wills is supplication to the divine, and strengthen their bones is giving them the fortitude to follow through. If that is what this key is, then I am with it, right? If it is deny by not having thoughts, I mean, filling their bellies is not fasting or anything, but weakening their wills through deception or anything like anything that was not what I just stated is probably not going to be aligned with me. He constantly tries to keep them without knowledge and without desire, and where there are those who have knowledge, to keep them from presuming to act on it. When there is this abstinence from action, good order is universal. Wrong. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. And I'm okay, let's do it. One of my major contentions, and not the only, but one of the major contentions that I have with the law of the Torah. If a man desires a woman and takes her, not coercively, but through the use of force, there is an application that is applied, right? He doesn't have criminal penalties. He's got civil penalties. He has to pay her father a little bit of money, and he's got to marry her. I'm of the opposite opinion from that law. I find that unethical, antithetical to good development for humanity. Therefore, there's no way that the deity set that law down. I also believe that if I am in the position where I can see this thing happening, and it is my desire to stop it, I am to act upon that desire and to stop it, even though it interferes with someone else's desire. Right? He who tries to keep them without desire, well, there's a positive desire right there, right? But I also have the desire to be charitable. That is the desire that I have. Am I to deny that desire? Am I not to give in to that? I have a desire to follow God emphatically and fully to the best of my abilities. Should I not give in to that desire? Do you see the intrinsic problem with this? To deny your desires is to deny yourself, and God created you. He created you specifically. Right? Out of everybody else on the planet, he decided that you need to be here. That you have something that these other 4 billion people cannot do. You have a purpose. You have a mission. You have desires. And those desires should be met as long as they are aligned with the will of God. Now, there is supplication. Weaken your will to the will of God. Fill your mind with God instead of the world. Fill your bellies with the provision that he provides, and strengthen your bones with the desire that he has given you. 4. The Tao is like the emptiness of a vessel, and in our enjoyment of it, we must be on our guard against all fullness. How deep and unfathomable it is, as if it were the honored ancestor of all things. That is mostly true, right? The Tao, the way, is an emptiness of a vessel. You know why? Because you haven't filled it up yet. This is your journey. Right? The way that you are upon is your journey. And while your way and my way may not be the same way, we are both on a way. We are both learning lessons. We are both gaining knowledge to be given to God by filling our vessel with the things that we experience. And so you should fill it. Now, when is it going to be full? The day you go home. This is not home. We are here temporarily. We are here. It is not an illusion. It is a reality, but it is not a permanent one for us. Right now, it might be in creation. We assume that it's not because we assume a lot of things. It is entirely possible that it has been existent, and we just cannot conceptualize that. But you are on a vessel, or you are a vessel on a journey, and the journey that you are on writes in the clay on the inside of the vessel. I see you, Jason. Writes in the clay your purpose, your intention, and yes, your desires go into that clay, which forms the vessel that you become, that the waters of life fill up. You get those waters from the tree of knowledge. Where do you get knowledge? From going out and deciding between this and that. Getting out into the world and doing is how you gain experience. And we are here for experience. Back to the text. We should blunt our sharp points and unravel the complications of things. We should attemper our brightness and bring ourselves into agreement with obscurity of others. How pure and still the Tao is, as if it were ever. So continue. I do not know whose son it is. It might appear to have been before God. Very interesting. I think that this might have been added somewhere. All right, so we should blunt our sharp points. Yes, absolutely. You are to strike balance, right? And if you are given over to wrath, for instance, you need to balance out with some love. Maybe you need to express kindness. If you are balanced towards diligence, then maybe you need to show some patience. That would be the balance between diligence and sloth. Lust and chastity is a sacred union, right? Those edges, the virtues and the vices, are the sharp points, and you should blunt them by being in the balance thereof. That is a thing that I talk about quite a lot. And so I agree, you should blunt your sharp points and even unravel the complication of things, right? Now, what I do over here is that, right? That is what we are doing. I fully and emphatically believe that if you really understand something, you can explain to whatever audience there happens to be. If you're talking to a third grader, you should be able to explain whatever it is to a third grader. That does not mean that you need to get into technical definitions with a third grader, but you should have an understanding of it, whatever it happens to be, to where you can explain it where they can understand it. That is what I attempt to do over here, to lay out as bluntly and as clearly as possible so that it is understandable to as many people as possible what my path is, by unraveling the complications that have been attached by various control systems and people who give us information. And if you haven't been paying attention the last couple of months, I have been unraveling some complicated things, right? We did Dogma and Ritual by Eliphas Levi, and we unraveled some complicated things. We did Natural History with Agrippa. We did some complicated things. We just did Liber 4 with Aleister Crowley. Again, unraveling some complicated things. So you should blunt your sharp points. That is striking balance in your life. Unravel the complications of things is by gaining the knowledge of it. Temper our brightness, however, bring ourselves into agreement with the obscurity of others. That is going to require caveats. Right? You should be approachable, right? You should be friendly. You should be able to explain to the third grader, and that is attempting to temper your brightness, which is what this is saying. Dim yourself enough to where people can approach. Absolutely, right? Regarding yourself as the bright shining light's a little bit prideful anyway. Right? There is a light. I do shine a light. I do not claim that it is the best light. Right? I am not God. I am not the Savior. I don't have the only way. I am not any of those things. Right? I'm not trying to raise myself to that level. I'm trying to come down to the point where people can understand me, and that's what this is. But the caveat is that you should not dim your light to the point where it is no longer your light. You should not subject your will to the whims of those around you to the point where it alters your core being. We have a tendency to mirror those we surround ourselves with. And the 5 people that you surround yourself with is who you will become. And so if you are choosing to surround yourself with 5 people who are less of a light than you are, your light will dim. You will temper your brightness, and you will not shine as brightly as you are intended to. That is not to say that you should exclude anyone or everyone who has a dimmer light, right? The only way to make the room brighter is by gaining more light, by becoming the light and attracting more light, by showing your brightness. And so while you should temper your brightness to where people can approach, it should be bright enough that it'll drive off the darkness. How pure and still the Tao is, as if it would ever so continue. All right, let me finish that. 5. Heaven and earth do not act from the impulse of any wish to be benevolent. They deal with all things as the dogs of grass are dealt with. The sages do not act from any wish to be benevolent. They deal with people as the dogs of grass are dealt with. Okay, so this is a saying that I am not familiar with. Dogs of grass. Let me see if I can get something on that real quick. No relevant information. Yeah, see, that is a saying that is lost to the antiquity of time. That is one of the problems with dealing with these things, right? But when we were doing Aleister Crowley and I was talking about not giving the contemporary context, right? He many times referred to things that hold no context outside of his particular area, his particular time period. There's no way for us to decipher those things. This is probably something along the same way, and I do not know how you deal with dogs of grass. Doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Right? Dogs eat grass. We just saw that, and they roll around in grass. They run through the grass, but they're not made out of grass. And if they are made out of grass, they're not real dogs, and there's a whole problem there, right? But heaven and earth do not act from any wish to be benevolent. That may be true, right? They deal with things as the dogs of grass are dealt with. Doesn't make any sense, but that appears to be as they are presented, maybe. Right? The sages do not act from any wish to be benevolent. I do not agree with. Right? The passing on of information correctly is benevolence. Benevolence is not just giving away money, right? It is leading on the right path, and that is absolutely what they are trying to do. Like, if you're a sage, that is exactly what you're trying to do. Right? To be benevolent, and benevolence is to give to others things they do not have, and that can absolutely be knowledge. Doesn't have to be physicality, but even if it was, Right? There's nothing wrong with giving away money. Right? There's nothing wrong with having money. Money is not evil. The love of money is the root of evil, but money is not evil. Money is a tool. Tools have no power in and of themselves. How many times have we talked about that? Right? And even greed and charity, time is in exchange for money, right? Or money is in exchange for time. And so you are giving your time in order to receive money, and then you give that money to receive other people's time. That is what the exchange is. It doesn't matter what the medium of that exchange is. And so provision is benevolence. And if I see someone hungry, I am going to feed them. And yes, that is me attempting to be benevolent. And it is not bad to try to align yourself with the positive things in life. That's benevolence. There's nothing wrong with trying to be benevolent. Now, can that go wrong? Yeah. Right? If you are feeding the same homeless person every day, you are not helping him at all. Right? But if you are giving them the opportunity to have a job and they take it, that is benevolence. Like, this is not correct. May not the space between heaven and earth be compared to a bellows? Well, yeah, it can. 'Tis emptied, yet it loses not its power. 'Tis moved again, and sends forth air the more. Much sweet speech, to swift exhaustion, lead we see. Your inner being guard, and keep it free. This does not seem to be, right? This seems to be an amalgamation, right? This is not a... I can't speak emphatically, right? I have not done the research. We are reading someone else's translation of an antiquated document, which is not probably sourced correctly anyway. But this appears to be multiple voices, right? And I say that because this is not the first time that this is in here, but it's really discontinuous. It doesn't really fit. Right? This is acts, right? This is taking action. This is not, right? This is a comparative. This is an allegory. And this right here is not describing what this is. This paragraph here and this paragraph here really have no bearing upon each other. They don't. And so it appears to be that maybe there is the consolidation effort wasn't right. Right? Now, that's not to mean that it is wrong or that it could be that it is discontinuous, that he wrote this part now and wrote this part 10 years later, and then he decided to put them together, and that would be a different voice because people do change over time. But the way that these so far, this is like the second instance, maybe even the third, where it is discontinuous within the same thing. Like the first couple of times I didn't really acknowledge it. I was like, well, maybe it's a mistake, but it's a pattern. 6. The valley spirit dies not, I the same. The female mystery thus do we name. Its gate, from which at first they issued forth, is called the root, from which grew heaven and earth. Long and unbroken does its power remain, used gently, and without the touch of pain. What is this? Right? Now, the valley spirit dies not, I the same. That would be the spirit of trial, maybe. Valley, trial, possibly. Could be us as the valley spirit incarnated, right? The female mystery, thus do we name, would be birth. Its gate from which they at first issued forth would be birth. The root from which grew heaven and earth would be birth, right? Long and unbroken, that would be less birth. There is death. Used gently and without the touch of pain would be life, right? As my interpretation, and take it as you will. But other than that, it really doesn't make any sense, right? Your spirit does not die. I agree with that. And we come through the female, so it does work. But I don't know that I agree with that allegory enough to even spend more time on it. 7. Heaven is long enduring and earth continues long. The reason why heaven and earth are able to endure and continue thus long is because they do not live of or for themselves. Well, that would be benevolence. This is how they are able to continue and endure. Therefore, the sage puts his own person last, and yet it is found in the foremost place. He treats his person as if it were foreign to him, and yet that person is preserved. Is it not because he has no personal and private ends, and therefore such ends are realized? Okay, now this could have went into the Proverbs of accumulated by Solomon. I will not attribute them to him. Right? There is wisdom. Right? Heaven and earth are long. They do endure. They will endure long past you. The reason why they do not live for and of themselves is directly contradictory to the other part about benevolence. Right? Directly contradictory to what was just stated. There's that. And this is how they were able to continue and endure. I believe that benevolence, that's why I spent time talking about that you need it, right? That would be benevolence. Putting someone else first is benevolence. And so that is, again, contradictory to what we just read. The sage puts his own person last is mostly true, not entirely true. You do have desires. They should be met. They should be properly aligned. That is true. But you still have them. God still gave them to you. It is still part of your mission. And so you should not always be last. It is better, in most cases, to put the will of others in front of yours. It helps a lot with those 8 laws of creation. It keeps your intentionality correct. All of my magical practices are not just for me, but for the benefit of as many people as I can possibly shove in there. That is not for the result. It is for the process. I know that is one of those things, right? If you know there is a result and you are doing it, it is never without that intention in mind, but that is not the primary intention for what I do. You should put the will of others before yours in most cases, not in all. Always is a big word, right? Therefore, putting your own person last is an always implication. That is a big thing. You should not always do that. There are times when you are more, right? Your desire to stay alive defeats the desire for someone else to end that. You have the capacity and are empowered to stop that in the opposite direction, right? I do not know that I can give clearer than that on YouTube, right? If someone is attempting to stop you from breathing, you are allowed to stop them from it. Right? In defense, not antagonistically. It is a thing. You are allowed to defend yourself. That is not putting yourself last. Right? That extends to the turn the other cheek metaphor as well. If someone is striking you, you do not have to tolerate that. There is no spiritual implications for defending yourself. You will not face reverberations as long as you take appropriate action. Do not get drawn into overcompensation, right? That is a temptation of anger, but anger is a vice, but it is a vice that you are meant to use just like all the rest. There is righteous anger. Defense of yourself is a thing. You're not always going to be last. Again, this is not correct. He treats this person as if it were foreign to him. That is kind of, right? There is the whole Jordan Peterson quote. Make the decision as if you were doing it for someone else, or if you were doing it for someone you love, and then one day make that yourself. That is the concept that this is trying to convey. Right? Do not always place someone else's needs above your own. Do not do that. Right? There is definitely time for that, and it is even most of the time, but it is not all of the time. Is it not because he has no personal and private ends, and that therefore such ends are realized? Things do not happen if you do not do it. Right? If you have a goal in your life and you are just expecting spirit to manifest that with no input from you, that will not happen. And that includes just energetic influence, right? If you are going and meditating upon this result every day, and that is all you are doing, you will not get that result. You envision your future, you empower your future, you take steps towards your future. That is the manifestation process. If there are no physical steps, it does not happen. If you have no goal, there is no goal reached, right? You have a personal and a private end to yourself. You have goals. Those are valid. You have them for a reason. As long as they are properly aligned, you are meant to pursue them. 8. The highest excellence is like that of water. The excellence of water appears in its benefiting all things and in its occupying without striving, to the contrary, the low place which all men dislike. Hence, its way is near that of the Tao. That is the wrong allegory. The highest excellence would be that of water, or of air, not water. You want to know why? The excellence of water appears in its benefiting all things. That is true, but that is also true of air. And it's occupying without striving the low place. That is wrong. That is exactly wrong. If you pour water in a high place, what happens to it? It goes down. It seeks the low place. Therefore, water is not the right allegory for this. Air would be. As a matter of fact, if you pour water in a high place, it displaces the air and drives it up higher. There would be a better one. Hence, okay, the excellence of a residence is in the suitability of the place. That of the mind is in abysmal stillness. That of associations is in their being with the virtuous. That of governments is in its securing good order. That of the conduct of affairs is in its ability, and that of the initiation of any movement is its timeliness. And when one with the highest excellence does not wrangle about his low position, no one finds fault with him. Okay, so the excellence of a residence is the suitability of the place is yes. Yeah, right? If your house is unsuitable to live in, then it is not a suitable, excellent residence, right? That of the mind is an abysmal stillness. That is partially correct, right? Your mind should not be racing all of the time. If it is, then you have internal work to do. That's one. Oh man, I just stepped on a toe, didn't I? Oh well. If your mind is racing all of the time, you do not have balance. That is an emphatic. That is something that I will state pretty emphatically. If you are having trouble maintaining order of your thoughts, there is some work to do. And I will put that quite bluntly, right? If you cannot still your mind, that is a problem. But if you are only stilling your mind, that is equally a problem, right? The people who spend all day in meditation are doing life wrong. You are meant to have experiences, and those experiences are not meant to be sitting static in one place all of the time. Now, I practice meditation. Normally, it's about 20 to 30 minutes. And I can do everything I need to do, prayer and meditation, in about that time. Now, that is me having practiced this for a while. It's gone down in duration as I have practiced it. But there is a point where the mind is in abysmal stillness if you are doing meditation correctly. If you are thinking, moving, directing the energy or your breath, you're not meditating yet. There is still work to do. The stillness of the mind comes by reflection and doing the shadow work. I have playlists for that. And so there is a time for abysmal stillness in mind, that is during the meditative process, waiting to hear back from the divine. But even the beginning of that is prayer, which is not stillness. That of associations is their being with the virtuous, right? You should align yourself with that, but that doesn't, like, here's the thing, right? You can't influence what is better than you with what is better, right? And so if you only associate yourself with things of a higher nature, then you are not engaging yourself in the way that you are meant to. You are meant to be a light to help others find a way. And so, if you are only surrounding yourself with those who have attained, then you are not allowing for other people to attain. You are not being the example. There is you being associated with those who are not virtuous, but that should not be your desire, right? You should be doing that to be an example, not to have the example rub off on you. that of government is in securing good order. That is the only role of government, right? The whole purpose of government is to secure domestic and foreign tranquility, right? We have a problem right here, and I'm trying not to bring politics into it too much, but right now we have the National Guard deploying to several cities in the United States, or about to deploy, right? He is talking about a couple: New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Monroe, Shreveport. I am in Louisiana. We welcome you. The role of the government is in securing good order. To promote domestic tranquility is literally in the foundational paperwork. And if there is a faction that is promoting non-domestic tranquility, it is the responsibility of the government to intervene in that. Not just a want, but a empirical need. The role of the government is to ensure that you can be free. Now, there are limitations to your freedom. Right? Even free speech has limitations. You are not allowed to incite violence. That is a limitation upon free speech. If you are mentally deranged and not capable of cognition in the right ways, you are prevented from owning a weapon. Right? These are things, they are limitations that are appropriate. But for the most part, you are to be independent. You have the full ability to be able to make decisions for yourself, and the government should not be involved in most of them. We have need for government. That is true. The government has a tendency to overstep. That is true as well. But securing tranquility, good order, is the only reason to have a government at all. We need a government to do that. If it was not for a government, we would all be slaves. That is true. If we were not in, here we go stepping on another toe, but if we were not in this republic, we would be emphatically absorbed, right? The only reason that we survived World War II, at least, is because of the way that we were able to produce as a unit. If it was not us in the current configuration, it would be really easy to pick off the little pieces. That is a truth, and along with that, there are people willing to do so. And so the only role of the government, the only thing that they are to do, is to secure good order. The conduct of its affairs is in its ability, yes, and the initiation of any movement is its timeliness. That is true as well. When one of the highest excellence does not wrangle about his low position, no one finds fault with him. As long as you are doing that in a spirit of humility in authority. And by that I mean, you are in a position of authority. You are called to be the decider in your life, regardless of whether you are externally with other people at all. But if you are called to be a leader, right, you are called to be in a higher position, but you should be in that higher position with humility, understanding other people's wants, needs, desires, the things that you have to humble yourself in order to do, right? And so you shouldn't be wrangling about your position. I should be promoted. I should be this. No, that's the wrong way of doing it. But if you are showing the excellence, demonstrating the excellence, being the excellence, and again, excellence is a big word. Nobody's ever going to be that. But if you are working towards that, right? If you are taking the right steps, that is being in a position of authority, assuming the role of making the calls. That is not wrangling with a low position, right? You are meant to be in a higher one. But if you are not, Napoleon Hill has a saying where he talks about above and beyond, right? When above and beyond is what this is really talking about. When you are in a position, you should be doing everything that you are doing, right? If you are hired for a position, you should fulfill every one of the responsibilities in that timely, on purpose, with full dedication, no distractions. You should not be playing on Facebook while you are getting paid at work. That is a real thing. But on top of that, right, you should also, once you have the ability to fully meet all of your things, be giving assistance. That assistance is by helping other people in theirs to achieve the same way that you did, right? To achieve the highest, to be the example. If you are going above and beyond, right? You are doing what you're meant to do. But if you're not, if you are just working a job and you're playing on Facebook all day, or you go and you take a 2-hour shit because company time, or I make a dime, boss makes $1, I make a dime, that's why I shit on company time, right? If you are doing that, you are a thief and you are not aligned correctly. That is wrangling with the low position, right? You feel like you deserve more money. And here's another wonderful example. The minimum wage, right? There are a lot of people screaming right now, we need to raise the minimum wage. No, we don't. The problem is that you have accepted that you deserve the minimum wage. And so the minimum wage should be raised so that you can meet your living requirements by raising this wage. Instead of you taking responsibility for your life and going and finding a job with a higher wage. Now, I have worked exactly one minimum wage my entire life, if you don't count the Navy, which probably counts, right? I was a pizza delivery man. That's the only job I ever worked where I made minimum wage. From the time I graduated high school until now, right? Every other job I have ever had paid more than minimum wage. If you are making minimum wage, that is the decision that you made. And if you are making it for longer than 2 years, that is the decision that you made, right? And if you are out here screaming that we need to raise the minimum wage, that is you wrangling about your low position, right? That is not you seeking a higher position. That is not you taking the positive steps to manifest the life that you want. That's you just bitching about it. That is wrangling about the low position. And that you should absolutely not do, right? Because people will find fault with the ones that do that. That's where we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand I have some unconventional beliefs and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for. The differentiation between the things that are true and the things that are not true is why I do this, right? There are many, many good pieces of wisdom, and sometimes there are things that can lead you in the wrong direction. My intention is benevolence, right? My intention is not to mislead you in any way, shape, or form, but to give you the appropriate information so you can make decisions about your way. I'm not trying to force you onto my path. I am merely showing you the logical deductions that I made to get to my path. The things that I have relayed here, they are intrinsic to me now. I have been practicing this so long that I cannot even conceive of the other side. This is me coming down, right? This is me attempting to show, to shine the light. I live, and I know this sounds incredibly prideful, but I live correctly, not in every single exception, right? But for the most part, I make the right decisions. And that is why I feel like I have the authority to do this, right? If I did not have the results, if I did not have the security, right? My mind used to race too. It doesn't anymore. I have control of those things. It is part of this process. It is better on this side of it, right? Many of the things in here is going to hold you on the wrong side. They seem wonderful until you really look at it. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that was stated. Put it in the box down below. And if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.